May was a young woman who lived in a small community. Life had never been kind to her. She lost her parents when she was very young, and since then she had been struggling to survive on her own. With no family to support her, she learned to take care of herself, but deep inside, she was never truly happy. Every day, May felt lonely and abandoned. She longed for love, for someone to notice her, to care about her. But the world around her was cruel. People whispered behind her back, and some even laughed at her openly. Men in the village would mock her as she walked by. Some would laugh and call her ugly, while others would turn away as if they couldn't bear to look at her. Their words and actions pierced her heart like a sharp knife. No man had ever approached her. No one had ever told her, "I love you." Not even once had she felt what it was like to be admired or desired. At night, when the world was asleep, May would sit alone in the small house her parents left behind. The silence of the night only made her pain heavier. She would think about her life and ask herself painful questions. "Does it mean I am not a human being?" she would whisper to herself. "Why do men run away from me? Am I not a woman too? God, did you really create me this way? Did you bring me into this world just to suffer alone?" Tears would roll down her face as she stared at the old mirror in her room. She would stand there for hours, looking at her reflection, searching for answers in her own eyes. But there were none. Only sadness stared back at her. Sometimes she wished she could change how she looked. Maybe then someone would love her. Maybe then she wouldn't have to spend every night crying. But the more she thought about it, the more hopeless she felt. "Will I remain single forever? Will I die alone?" she asked herself. The pain in her heart was unbearable. Every night, she stood in front of that mirror, hoping to see something different, something beautiful. But all she saw was the same face that the world rejected. As the morning sun began to rise, May wiped her tears. A new day had come, but her pain remained the same. Would her life ever change? Would she ever find happiness? Little did she know, something unexpected was about to happen. One day, as May was gathering firewood in the forest, an old woman suddenly appeared before her. The woman had deep wrinkles on her face, her eyes were small but sharp, and she carried a long wooden staff. She looked at May with pity and said, "My child, cry no more. I will help you become beautiful." May's heart skipped a beat. Her whole life she had been mocked for her looks. She had prayed, begged, and cried for a miracle. And now, here stood a mysterious old woman promising to grant her deepest wish. "You will make me beautiful?" May asked eagerly, her voice trembling with excitement and desperation. The old woman nodded, but her face remained serious. "Yes, I will, but there's a price to pay. Your beauty will come at the expense of men's manliness." May frowned, confused. "At the expense of men's manliness?" she repeated. "Yes," the old woman continued. "Any man who smells this perfume will lose his manliness, and it will appear in your cooking pot at home. Before you return, your pot will be full. You must cook and eat everything inside. Do not hesitate. Do not think twice. Do not blink an eye while eating. And once you eat, you will transform into the most beautiful woman anyone has ever seen." May's heart raced with excitement. For years, men had laughed at her, mocked her, humiliated her. Now she had a chance to make them suffer as she had suffered. "I will do anything to be beautiful," she declared. "I have suffered too much at the hands of men. They have called me names, treated me like I was nothing. If this is the way to change my life, then so be it." The old woman smiled, revealing a set of brown, crooked teeth. From the folds of her ragged clothes, she pulled out a small bottle filled with a golden liquid and handed it to May. "This is the perfume. Use it wisely," she warned. Just as May was about to leave, the old woman held up a finger and gave her one last warning. "Listen carefully. You must eat every bit of the manliness collected in your pot each day. Do not leave any leftovers. If even one piece remains till the next day, everything will backfire on you." May nodded eagerly, not really paying attention to the warning. She was too excited. She grabbed the perfume, thanked the old woman, and ran back home. That night, May stood in front of her mirror, holding the perfume close to her chest. She grinned widely, her eyes shining with newfound confidence. "Now I will show them," she whispered to herself. "The men who laughed at me, who called me ugly, they will regret it. I will make them suffer." She uncorked the bottle, took a deep breath and sprayed the perfume on herself. The scent was rich and sweet, unlike anything she had ever smelled before. It filled the air around her, making her feel powerful. The next morning, May walked to the busiest market in the village, pretending to be there for shopping. She moved through the crowd, waiting for the magic to happen. At first, nothing seemed different. As usual, the men who saw her burst into laughter. "Look at this ugly pig. Spraying perfume? Who gave her that? Does she even know how to use it?" One man mocked. "Maybe she stole it," another added. Who would waste such a nice perfume on someone like her? May did not cry this time. She smiled because she knew something they didn't. As they laughed, something invisible but powerful was happening. One by one, the men who mocked her felt something strange in their bodies. They gasped, clutched their stomachs, and staggered in confusion. Unknown to them, their manliness was vanishing, disappearing from their bodies and reappearing in May's pot at home. May walked through the market, breathing in the scent of her own perfume, knowing that with every step, her pot was filling up. When she finally returned home, she rushed to the kitchen and flung open her pot. Her eyes widened in shock and excitement. The pot was overflowing with the stolen manliness. The sight of it made her heart race. "It worked," she whispered in amazement. Without wasting time, she set up a fire, cooked the contents of the pot with the best spices she had, and ate every last piece, just as the old woman instructed. The moment she swallowed the final bite, she felt a strange energy surge through her body. It was like fire and ice at the same time, burning and freezing her from the inside. She gasped, gripping the edge of the table as her entire being trembled. Then it happened. Her skin began to glow, smooth and flawless. Her rough features softened into perfect beauty. Her tangled hair straightened, becoming long and silky. Her lips turned full and red, her eyes bright and captivating. When she turned to the mirror, she barely recognized herself. "Is this really me?" she whispered. Her old, ugly face was gone. In its place was the face of a goddess. She was beautiful, so beautiful that even she could not believe it. She let out a loud, joyous laugh and spun around in excitement. "I have arrived," she shouted. "Now the men who mocked me will bow before me. I will make them suffer as they made me suffer." She danced around her house, celebrating her new life. But deep inside, she had forgotten one important thing, the old woman's warning. Would she truly be careful enough to eat everything each day? Or would greed and overconfidence lead her to a fate worse than her old life? May had become the most beautiful woman anyone had ever seen. Her transformation was so unbelievable that people whispered about her in awe. Whenever she stepped outside, spraying her enchanted perfume, men would freeze in shock, their eyes widening as they admired her elegance. "Is this really the same May?" they murmured among themselves. How did she become so beautiful overnight? Men who once mocked her now gazed at her with desire, unaware that their fate had already been sealed. With every step she took, their manliness disappeared from their bodies and reappeared in her cooking pot at home. Each night, May would return home, find her pot filled with stolen manliness, cook it into a rich meal, and eat it greedily. The more she ate, the more beautiful she became. Her skin glowed like the morning sun, her hair flowed like silk, and her body moved with irresistible charm. She was no longer the ugly woman they laughed at, she was now the woman they worshipped. One evening, May returned home after a long day of walking through the market, collecting more manliness without suspicion. She stood before her mirror, holding a glass of wine in her hand, admiring her flawless reflection. "Now let me see who will ever call me ugly again," she said with a proud smile. She twirled in front of the mirror, sipping her wine, lost in the joy of her beauty. The world that once rejected her was now at her feet. She drank more and more, feeling lightheaded. The wine relaxed her, and before she knew it, she dozed off on her chair, completely forgetting to cook and eat the manliness that had filled her pot that day. As the first light of morning crept into her room, a strange cold wind blew through her house. May's eyes fluttered open. She felt uneasy. The room was unnaturally quiet. Then suddenly, a deep, ghostly whisper filled the air. "May, May, why did you kill us?" She turned her head and gasped in terror. Standing before her were the ghosts of the men she had destroyed. Their eyes were dark and hollow, their faces twisted in anger and pain. Their presence filled the room with an icy chill. May's heart pounded in fear. She jumped from her chair and ran out of the house, screaming. The ghosts chased after her, their voices echoing through the air. "Why did you take our manliness? Why did you kill us?" Tears streamed down her face as she ran, her legs trembling beneath her. "Please, forgive me. I didn't mean to kill you. I just wanted to be beautiful," she sobbed. But the ghosts did not stop. Their voices grew louder, angrier. May ran as fast as she could to the only person who could help her, the old woman who had given her the perfume. May fell to her knees before the old woman, gasping for breath. "Please help me," she cried. "The ghosts are after me. They say I killed them." The old woman shook her head, her face filled with disappointment. "I warned you, May. You should have finished your meal every day. Now the spirits of the men you destroyed have returned for revenge." "What can I do?" May begged, clutching the old woman's feet. "I don't want to die." The old woman sighed and looked into May's desperate eyes. "There is only one way to escape death. You must vomit everything you have eaten. You must give back all the manliness you took." May's eyes widened in horror. "No, you mean I must return to my old, ugly self?" she cried. "That is the only way," the old woman said firmly. "Beauty gained through evil can never last." Tears ran down May's cheeks, but she had no choice. She wanted to live. The old woman handed her a cup of water. "Drink this," she commanded. May hesitated, but as the ghosts drew closer, she quickly gulped it down. Suddenly, she felt a terrible pain in her stomach. She doubled over, clutching her belly, and then she began to vomit. Out of her mouth came all the manliness she had eaten. One by one, they spilled onto the ground. It was the most horrifying moment of her life. When it was finally over, she collapsed, exhausted. The old woman nodded. "You are free now. The ghosts will leave you alone." May sighed in relief. She had survived. She was going to live. But as she turned to leave, something terrible happened. Her beauty vanished. Before her eyes, her skin became rough again. Her hair tangled into a mess. Her lips cracked and her body lost its grace. She was back to her old self. May screamed in horror. "No, no, what have I done? What have I done to myself?" Tears streamed down her face as she stumbled away, heading home through the dark forest. As she walked, crying and lamenting, the air around her grew colder. Then, the ghosts appeared again. "You may have given back our manliness," they said, "but you cannot return our lives." May's eyes widened in terror. "No, please. I gave it back. The old woman said I was free," she pleaded. But the ghosts only moved closer, their hollow eyes burning into hers. "You must pay for your sins, May. You killed us, and now it is your turn to die." Before she could run, before she could scream, the ghost struck her down. A loud, piercing cry echoed through the forest, and then there was silence. May was dead. She never made it home. The moral lessons 1. True beauty comes from within. May's desire for external beauty led her to destruction because she never learned to love herself as she was. 2. Jealousy and revenge only bring suffering. Instead of seeking peace, May allowed her bitterness to consume her, leading to her downfall. 3. Evil always comes with a price. No matter how tempting an offer seems, if it requires harming others, it will eventually backfire. 4. Be careful what you wish for. May wanted beauty at any cost, but in the end, she lost everything, including her life. Thank you for watching this story. I hope you learned something valuable from it. If you enjoyed this tale, please subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss more amazing stories. Stay tuned for more powerful and exciting folk tales. And remember, true beauty is not in the face, but in the heart.